just how parents are eager for information and also to engage so we can support our children through their educational journey. NPCPP are the recognised advocates for all parents in national consultations with all of the stakeholders. And our mission is to fully inform post-primary parents and ensure that we hear your views and concerns so that we can effectively represent you at national discussions. Our Wednesday webinars now bring information on various topics of interest and concern for parents of post-primary students. And the format this evening will follow our usual 1-hour session with an initial presentation, followed by an opportunity to answer the questions that you pose. In order to ensure that we can answer any question or query that you may have, please use the chat facility. You can alternatively send your question to communications@npcpp.ie and we will get back to you to clarify. We endeavour to ensure that as many questions as possible are answered, but after this evening, even if you do have another query or something occurs to you, contact us by email, again, at communications@npcpp.ie. Education is changing quite rapidly now, and it is vitally important that parents are informed and actively engaged to ensure that our voice is heard in the national consultations. So please do let us know of your thoughts, concerns, suggestions, and ideas. Now, this evening's Wednesday webinar focuses on the Junior Cycle programme, and we are delighted to welcome our guest presenter, Éidín Gallagher, from the Department of Education's Junior Cycle team, who will outline the programme, how it works, and how we as parents might best understand the process and how we might assist our children as they progress through the first part of their post-primary education. So without further delay, I will pass you over to Éidín now. Thank you, Éidín.
Thank you so much, May, and thank you, Donal, also, who's working on the technical details in the background. Delighted to be with you this evening, so thank you so much for the invitation and for all the help and the support in advance of this evening's webinar. And hello to each and every one of the attendees joining us this evening. Very appreciative of your time and for coming along, because I'm acutely aware of how busy things are and how many balls you're all trying to keep in the air, etc. at the same time. So delighted that you could join us, and we hope that it's very informative and helpful for you this evening. So I'm just going to share my screen, if that's okay. And without further ado, we will bounce on and get into the presentation. So, as May just mentioned there, my name is Éidín Gallagher, and I'm joining you tonight from Junior Cycle for Teachers. That's the dedicated support services within the Department of Education for, it's really looking after teacher CPD, teacher training, teacher continuous professional development in this area in the new Junior Cycle programme. And I've been a teacher. I was teaching in Malahide Community School, and I'm seconded from that school. I was there for 17 years, and I've spent the last 5 years working on a variety of teams in JCT, Junior Cycle for Teachers, and have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed my time. And I come to you this evening as, professionally as a teacher and as a supported, member of staff, or a seconded member of staff in the support services. But also, and probably more importantly, I come to you this evening as a parent of 3 children, but my eldest daughter is nearing that stage in her life, and how quickly it comes around, but she will be entering 6th class now. And she will be entering first year in September 2023. So I have a very keen interest in this area in terms of junior cycle reform from both a professional and a parent's perspective. And I very much welcome the changes that have come on board in terms of junior cycle education over the last few years, since 2015, since the new framework was introduced. And I will go through all that now. So in terms of junior cycle reform, so I'm just, I suppose, again, just thinking of the audience that we have here this evening, and probably the age profile and the stage that, some of us may be at, and in terms of when I was at school and how education has changed and I suppose blossomed and changed over the last few years. And in particular, this reform for those students, and we're talking about students from 12 to 15 years of age, so still at quite a tender young age in the educational landscape. And those children, the changes that have been introduced, this is really historical, and it really is landmark in terms of the development of education for these students. So it is a huge, I suppose, change. And it really, it came under the word reform, and it was reform. So that's what the students will be entering into in their first year. And I would see the changes as very welcome in that regard. So I suppose the image there on the screen is just really to set the scene for us all this evening, that perhaps since we were in school, many changes have taken place. And sometimes, and I do it myself, because I've never really left school. I was in school and then teaching, and now I spend my time going around school. So I just, you kind of haven't been through the system. There's still things that I, believe are still the same, but things have changed enormously really over the last few years. So just to set the context before we move on any further. What I'd really like to do at this point is just, I know this is just going to be a short presentation and kind of informal as well, and you're welcome to pop any questions into the chat as Donal has just stated there. I think he's going to hold them till a little bit later on the webinar. But I would love just to get your input, if you wouldn't mind, at this stage. And in order to do that, we're going to avail of just a platform on the web, and you can just use your mobile phone for this if you have it handy, or any other device, if there's some kind of a tablet device or anything beside you there. If you wouldn't mind just opening, so just to open menti.com, okay, so MENTI, menti.com. So I'll give you a moment, so just menti.com, and you just pop in that code there. It's 4673 9181. Please, thank you. So menti.com 4673 9181. And the question that I'd really value your input on at this stage of the evening is, what do you think is the purpose of junior cycle education? So again, we're talking about those students going into first year, about to embark on a new school and a new learning journey, 12 to 15 years of age. What do you feel is the purpose of junior cycle education? There's no right and wrong answer. It's just, I suppose, from the heart, whatever comes into your mind, just to pop that down. There's two boxes there, and you can pop in any two words or short, just words that come into your mind. And we're going to look at your feedback. I'm going to open this up so you can see. So I'm just going to come out of the presentation for a moment, and I'm going to go. Screen sharing has stopped. Yeah, I just need to go to the Mentimeter over here. I'll present this, and I can see your feedback coming in, which is great. I just need to share my screen again. Okay, so I hope you can all see that. It's growing and taking shape there. So thank you for your input, and feel free to keep, bouncing your ideas in. That's fantastic. And whatever a lot of people are focusing on, that will come up in. I'm just having a look here at the feedback. So exams is coming up, absolutely. Groundwork for Leaving Cert and the lead up to the Leaving Cert. I love that one that's there, the broaden minds. That's really insightful as well. The independent thinking, absolutely. And I think this is really interesting. Independence, wouldn't it be great if we could, encourage and foster independence and perhaps resilience amongst our young people as well. The child development, again, preparation for the leaving and the exams. Time management, absolutely, as a skill to develop as well. Language skills, etc. Life skills, and that. So that's really, really interesting. And it's just lovely to get your feedback. So thank you for that. And you can keep them coming in if you want, because I might, you know, flip back and forth to that over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. And just checking I'm not missing anything there. Educate to research, wouldn't that be a lovely one as well, to foster amongst young people that hunger for learning and that desire to learn more. Great. So I'm going to go back. Can everyone still see my screen there, yeah? If you can, it says it's paused, so I'll have to start again. It's a little bit different the way I do it normally in JCP, but that's fine. Sometimes we can just go seamlessly from one to the other, but it's stopping and starting there. Okay, so that was our mentee, and we did that, and thank you for engaging with that. The purpose of junior cycle education. I would like to lodge two kind of big concepts really before we move any further in the presentation. So the framework for junior cycle is the document upon which all of our work in schools now for the first 3 years of post-primary education is based upon. And I'll show you, an image of this document in a few moments. But just to say at the outset that quote in front of you right now, that's a quote that we would use in a lot of our CPD over the course of the last, JCT has been around since 2013. So since that time, student-centered education. So I'll allow you just a moment just actually to absorb and just to read the quote there on screen, because it's very important. Thank you. So student at the center. I mean, if I had a penny for every time I said that, or that was said in a room, either in a school or within JCT or in meetings over the course of the last 5 years, I think I'd be a millionaire at this stage. It's student-centered education. And isn't that wonderful that that's what these students, that's what these young adults are going in to that kind of a system, a student-centered education, okay? A modernized curriculum, and across all subjects within new specifications, new ways of learning, and that broader range of skills to be properly assessed. So we're looking for a balance between knowledge and skills. So previously, I suppose, and in the 17 years I was teaching in Malahide with the old junior certificate, there was emphasis on knowledge and skills, but there is more of an emphasis, there's more of a balance on the skills in the specifications that I teach now than there were previously. And that's to be welcome, because these are skills, I suppose, that will carry our young people through life and that will enable them, and I suppose they'll be well equipped when they go into the world of work, etc. later on, if that's what they want to do. So that's one of the concepts I just want to lodge. And before we go any further, the second one is student voice. And you may hear a lot of talk about student voice over the next few years as these students go through their 3 years of junior cycle. You may hear about it if you're at a parent's seminar in the post-primary school that these students are attending, or you may hear about it in some other shape or form. But student voice is definitely a theme that we would carry with us in all of our CPD. And I know that it's highly regarded in schools at the moment. And we're really trying to activate student voice, to listen to the opinions of these young people and to see that they have, influence and a place to voice their concerns. And they can see that these concerns are acted upon where appropriate. I mean, if the students decide they want a swimming pool the next day, or even within ever, sometimes that's not possible, but absolutely that we actively listen to their needs, we actively listen to where they're at, and their voice is paramount in everything, I suppose, junior cycle. So student voice definitely as a theme coming to the fore. So to move on in terms of student voice, that it's not just nice to include student voice, or it's not just good practice, good pedagogical or teaching practice, but that it's a right and that it needs to be taken seriously. And some of you may be aware of that particular Article 12 in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and that the young person has a right to an opinion and for it to be listened to and taken seriously. And Dr. Laura Lundy, in her research, okay, and the Lundy model of child participation, Dr. Lundy, there's a quote on screen from her. And again, she's saying it's not just that it's, you know, nice pedagogical practice, but it's a legally binding obligation. So it certainly, as I say, would form part and parcel of a lot of the CPD that we would do with teachers. And I just thought it was important to begin the presentation by launching the student at the centre and then the student voice before we go on any further. So it gives you a flavour of what junior cycle reform is all about. So in terms of a junior cycle classroom, and again, I'm thinking back, my God, to the 80s when I was in primary school, and then to the early 90s when I was in second level, post-primary, and how things have changed. There's an image on screen there, and it could be indicative, you know, of the type of this modernized curriculum and this change and that we're talking about in a junior cycle classroom. I'd invite you, if you wouldn't mind, if anyone would mind just having a wee look at the image on screen. And if anything jumps out at you, or what do you notice? You know, what does a junior cycle classroom look like nowadays? So 12 to 15-year-olds, what are they engaged in? What type of activities are they doing? If you wouldn't mind popping your thoughts into the chat, so there's a little bit of interaction, that would be wonderful. And or if you prefer just to silently think about it at this time of the evening and you're just exhausted, I appreciate that too. But maybe I can see some things coming in at the chat, so I'll take a quick look here. Thank you. Okay, so I can see somebody there has you know, mentioned participation and teamwork. So thank you to that person for that comment there. And then, yes, working in a group together, lovely. So again, the teamwork, the participation, the group work, etc. I'm going to try and move this little chat function out of the way in case I'm blocking the image there on screen. Thank you. So thank you to both those people who have just popped their thoughts there into the chat. So yeah, absolutely the group work and absolutely the participation, the teamwork. Anyone else like to say anything else? Great, we have thoughts and ideas together. Yeah, that, I suppose, that collaborative approach to learning, and that's very insightful too. So thank you for that. Okay. Oh yeah, and another person, more interaction between teachers and students and more active student participation in class activity. And absolutely that person, and I don't want to name people just because this is recorded and that, but just when I really appreciate and seeing interesting work for the student and the textbook not being used. So these are very, very clued in responses, and thank you so much, and they're excellent. Yeah, there's no over-reliance on textbooks. The active learning that was mentioned by someone there, absolutely, that you were really hitting it on the head. So it's just to give you, I suppose, a picture tells 1,000 words, just to give you a certain insight and to give you a feel for what it's like. You know, when I think back to my early days teaching and in the year 2000, when that September, when I started in Malahide Community School, and if the principal had walked past the door, I thought, I better have this class really, really quiet all the time. Whereas now, you know, if I'm back there in the morning teaching, I mean, it's the noise, it's the discussion, it's the teacher being more the guide on the side as opposed to the sage on the stage, you know, and it's gone from that very much a teacher-led approach to student-led and, I suppose, inquiry-based learning, etc. I'm just interested in the chat because it's great to get some interactions. Just having a look there. Brainstorming, great, thank you. And workload spaced out over 2 years with CBAs, great. So it sounds like some of these people could actually host this webinar for me this evening. But so thank you so much for that input, it's very valuable. So yes, so people have mentioned their and we'll come on to the classroom-based assessments in a few moments, but that the question mark, the light bulb moment, the technology even, you know, and the devices and the collegiality, I suppose, the people working collaboratively and that. So I'll take one more because I can just see it coming in, and multiple methodologies and technologies. Yes, and I agree there with that person, because variety really is the spice of life. And I think if I'm teaching more or less the same way all the time, a lot of students that will suit, but there'll always be a certain group of students that I'm just not reaching their needs. And I think by using more approaches, I'm more likely to capture more students. Thank you. And really, a lot of you have summed it up there in your comments, but that's what we're talking about. It's the active learning methodologies, and I think 2 or 3 people alluded to that there in the chat. You know, I'm always reminded of the quote: I see, I forget, I hear, I remember, but if I do, I really understand. And maybe you all might like to take a moment to think back of something that you learned recently enough within the last year or 2, and something perhaps that you were successful at. It doesn't have to be in the world of work or school. It could be a hobby, it could be a new sport, it could be some new activity, but why were you successful at it? You know, and I suppose when we reflect on that, there's a lot of variables that come into question, but I suppose active learning and learning by doing is certainly very influential in this area. So active learning methodologies in the junior cycle classroom. Not all day, every day. I mean, we have a balance, and some classes are a lot quieter, and depends what we're doing. And we try to bring in peer assessment and self-assessment and other things too. But certainly active learning methodologies are a key component here. So that's the framework document that I've mentioned, on which all of our work is based on in JCT. And that's the framework produced by the Department of Education, as it's called now, but the DES at the time, and that is the framework upon which we base all our work at junior cycle. Okay, emanating from that, I mean, I would definitely, I think, for the purposes of this webinar tonight, and I suppose the target audience being parents, and that, I think there's a lot of things that I could take out that framework, but I think the key skills, I really wanted to speak about the key skills for a moment or two, because you might be walking around a school building over the next few months, or indeed year or 2, and you might see that poster, and you might see junior cycle, and you might just think back. They're the key skills that we try to activate with junior cycle education nowadays. They're there, you know, they're immersed right throughout all of the subject specifications. So they're the key skills that students should be activating, you know, over the 3 years. And I mean, when you look at them, I mean, how important, and they're equally as important to each other, the 8 key skills, but I'm looking at the, you know, the working with others, the creativity, the staying well, the managing myself, the literacy, numeracy. I mean, I could just literally call out them all, but, you know, that they're definitely, I think, you know, we're in a good place if our students nowadays, and 1st to 3rd year particularly, are building on those key skills, and I suppose just, you know, learning to cope with whatever life throws at them through those key skills. And also, and we've looked at the framework, but the second document that I would like to just you know, mention, because this forms a huge part of junior cycle education nowadays, are the Wellbeing Guidelines. And then you will hear, you know, well-being being mentioned quite a lot, I suppose. And in schools you may hear, I mean, we talk about well-being teaching for and teaching about well-being, and sometimes it's very clear we're learning about well-being in PE, CSP and SPG, or sometimes it's just we're absorbing it all the time. You know, it's in the geography classroom, it's in the Gaeilge classroom, it's in the maths classroom. We might have a well-being week or focus, or a well-being team within the school, and it's a huge focus. And schools, in terms of a timetabling point of view, are moving towards a greater period of hours devoted to well-being. So that's positive also. And I think the ramifications, the benefits of that are huge, particularly in the era that we're just emerging from post-COVID, etc. The indicators of well-being, where we had the framework and we looked at the key skills and activating the key skills, I thought as well, in terms of this webinar tonight, that you may be interested in just the indicators of well-being, and give you just a few seconds just to have a look at them. And they are awarded the JCPA at the end of their 3 years, the same profile of achievement as their peers. Now, it's not exactly the same. They work on priority learning units and all of that, but essentially they are doing junior cycle along with their peers. And I think that's a moment I think that's one of the best parts of the reform, that these students now follow a program and receive the same JCPA as their peers. In actual fact, this year, so the current third years, any of those students that are following level 1 learning programs at the moment, this year is the first year that they will be awarded their JCPA, and I'll talk more about that later on. So definitely a celebratory moment, a big celebration moment this year. We've our subjects again, we've wellbeing, I've mentioned, short courses which are optional, and other learning experiences, and all of this, we've assessment and reporting threaded throughout. Okay. So we will move on. This is a short clip that I would like to show you. It's a short clip developed by the NCCA. It's an information, I suppose, video clip for parents of students doing junior cycle. So I'd like to play that now, and I hope you can hear the sound. I've clicked share sound, so I'm hoping that it is crystal clear. Let me let's go to the video. Okay, I'll share again. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Orla, and I'm on a journey, a learning journey. Lots of things have changed since I started post-primary school, and now school itself is changing too. We're getting a new and better junior cycle, a really exciting way for kids like me to learn. The brand new junior cycle is a clever and modern way of teaching. It'll make sure that our schools continue to be amongst the best in the world well into the future. One of the most important changes is that we won't just focus on one big exam at the end, like the Junior Cert. Instead, our results will come from how well we do throughout the whole of the junior cycle. There's still an exam at the end, of course, but I won't have to worry about it as much as my big sister did. My teachers will make sure that all my hard work since first year will count towards my final report. That way, they'll be able to help me focus on things step by step and steer me in the right direction all the way through the school year. It'll be much better than cramming for exams, and help make sure the things I learn are more likely to stick with me when I'm finished school. In the new junior cycle, our teachers will be able to focus on the most important parts of their role, as well as helping us pass exams. By encouraging us to think about our own learning, they make us a part of the process and really get us involved. And we want to get involved. We're excited about it. Waiting until the end of the year and then writing down what we've learned was okay. But now we get to demonstrate and share what we've learned in lots of different ways. Ways that will make our learning journey more interesting. Learning together will be brilliant. And even our teachers will be learning too. They'll be getting all sorts of training on the new changes with plenty of time to adapt. As part of the new process, our teachers will all get to work together and have discussions themselves. That's a big part of how they check our progress all the way through the junior cycle. And there's no one better to be able to tell us how well we've done, because they'll be a part of our learning journey every day. When our teachers have finished discussing how good our work is, they'll talk through everything with us and our parents. This makes me pretty excited about the junior cycle. I'm pretty confident too. I know that my learning journey is all set to be on the right track, every step of the way.
So I hope that was useful as well. It's just a short video, and I can put the link for that, if it helps, into the chat later on as we move forward on in the presentation. So I'm going to share again. And back to the presentation, if that's okay. So that's just like a summary of it, which I think is helpful. It's trying to really give you a flavour of what it's about before these students enter first year in September. So again, their learning journey, okay, so they're coming in from primary school, first year, second year. In second year, now someone in the chat earlier on mentioned the CBAs. So the CBAs, that's an acronym for the classroom-based assessments. I suppose in short, they're little projects that the students do, projects. And you know, you will hear your son or daughter or the students talking about these projects as they go along and as they move along in second year and in third year. So the idea of the classroom-based assessments is, I suppose there are certain skills that the students will be able to demonstrate in a classroom-based assessment that they would not be able to demonstrate at the end of the year in a final exam. So I would see this as a very welcome opportunity for students really to get involved in some kind of project work that they're very interested in and that they will enjoy, and that might just spark a curiosity for that subject again, a passion for the subject. And, you know, you may be aware of students that, you know, that you already know that are going through the system. You may be aware of these projects that they've done before, but they will do classroom-based assessments in second year and also in third year. And all along, there will be ongoing assessment as well. And it's different type of assessments, not all. So assessment has changed from, I suppose, at the end of the 3 years and the big, you know, written exam, whereas we try to have more of an ongoing approach to assessment over the course of the 3 years. And then there are the final exams at the end of third year also, but that they're used to doing assessments all along and that they gain feedback on how the students are getting on, and you know, that feedback is moving the students forward so that they're developing and improving, and I suppose just they're really moving on in the subject areas all the time as a result of the ongoing assessment. So that's the learning journey. Resources for parents. So the organisation, as I said, that I work for, Junior Cycle for Teachers, jct.ie, and I'm going to show you their website now. But that website, if you're curious, okay, about anything junior cycle related, you can actually take a tour of the website yourself. Particularly, and I'm going to show you where these publications are. Under publications, we have produced parents' information leaflets, both parents' information leaflets at primary level and at post-primary level, really explaining all about junior cycle. So they're there, they're in colour, you can print them off or read them online, whatever suits yourselves best. But they're really good to give you insight into what it's all about, basically. So rather than just mention them and then maybe you forget where they are, I'd like to show you where they are. And they're available in English, Oscuelga, and in Russian and in Ukrainian as well. Okay, so those information leaflets, you know, you may come away from tonight and over the next few weeks, you may think of something else, you know, or even 6 months down the line have a question, and even just to remember that those leaflets are there and you might want to go back and check on them. There's a lot of, you know, useful information there. So I'm just going to stop sharing for the moment and go over to jct.ie and show you where those leaflets are. And yeah, so thank you to that person for the question. So just to be crystal clear, the name of the website there, I'm going to bring you to it anyway. It's called jct.ie. So share again. Okay, so I'm on jct.ie. So this is the website, this is the organisation that I work for. And as I said, providing the CPD to teachers, you know, around Ireland. So when you go onto this website, you land, if you click on publications, and if you go down to parents' information leaflets, you may be interested in some of the subject information leaflets too, to find out what they're doing, you know, in geography and history and science, etc. But particularly for the purpose of the webinar this evening, I wanted to show you the parents' information leaflets. So we have post-primary available there. You just click to view, download. It's very thorough. And we have for primary also, and then a leaflet describing the ongoing assessment. These two in particular are very useful and contain a lot of the information that you will need as these students enter first year. Okay, if you're looking for them, Oscuelga, Tálagan Gaeilge, doesn't falch con sin, tá siad le fáil ag an nasc seo chuig. Okay, so they're all there, Oscuelga too, and they're very useful. Okay, So the subjects, so I'll just say below go Olish. Yep, so Irvon Skull, August Bun Skull and Shin. Okay, so they're very useful. So JCPA.ie. Now I have links to them, which I will pop into the chat. I'll do it right now, actually, if that helps. So I'm going to pop in the links to the publications first. I'm also going to pop in, well, no, I'll just put in the links to the publications first. I just have that open there. So to everyone, okay, and here are the links coming your way there now. So I hope that's useful. Okay, so that's jct.ie, and that will be useful. I need to share again. Sorry. Normally I can just go in and out and not have to reshare and stop sharing, but for some reason tonight must be because I've joined as a panelist rather than my own Zoom account. So, okay, so that's to give you flavor and just to make you, aware that they are there and that you may want to access them going forward. So they're the resources for parents. So something you mightn't have been aware that existed beforehand. So moving on, and just in terms of reporting in junior cycle, it's much more varied than it would have been when I was in school in either primary or secondary. And indeed, we're talking about post-primary school here. So, there's oral feedback, there's formal, there's informal reporting, learning logs, end of term reports, the parent-teacher meetings, but the regularity of it is really of essence here. So it's the regularity in terms of the reporting. So that's the approach that's taken to reporting. It's ongoing and it's regular in junior cycle. Okay, the classroom-based assessments, we mentioned them earlier on. So I'm using CBAs here, so I hope that's clear that that's classroom-based assessments. And these are the projects, as I said, that students will be involved in, particularly in second year and in third year. You may hear the students talking about that they have to do an oral presentation in class. And yes, sometimes the students can be nervous in advance and that, but with assistance, with plenty of guidance from their teachers, when they do it, these students are very well equipped for, I suppose, the life going forward in both personal and professional lives going forward. And these are skills which they can draw upon. And we've listened to students over the years where they tell us, yes, they were nervous beforehand, but the sense of, I suppose, pride and elation they got when they were finished it, and how rewarding that was. So it could be an oral presentation, it could be a podcast, it could be just a poster they design, it could be a little video. And I tell you, the students nowadays, they buy and sell me in terms of making these videos. I just give them the topic and they go off and come back with these fantastic things. A written report, an oral presentation, podcast, as I mentioned, could be an artistic performance, science experiment. Listen, the list it goes on and goes on. It's not exhaustive. Definitely, it's moments in the students' 3 years whereby they're able to showcase certain skills and talents that they couldn't do in an end of 3-year written exam in a hall. So I think that is a very it's a very important stage for the children and for these students, because they get to showcase these talents. And sometimes you'll find students that are not great at performing on the end of year written exams, but they might delight in doing a project or building a model or whatever, or vice versa. Or you might find students that are happy enough to do both, but definitely, the teachers will try and support the students and give regular feedback and try and help them as best as they can. In terms of how they're reported on, one thing that I would like to say, I suppose, and this is important, the CBA's then descriptors, okay, they will get in their final junior cycle profile of achievement, which I'll show you very shortly, and we'll be finishing within the next 10 minutes, the presentation, but that junior cycle profile achievement, their CBA descriptors will be on that, okay, for how they get on their CBAs. There are just 4 descriptors, so it's not like there's percentages or anything like that. Like, again, well, certainly my age, it was A's and B's and all that in school, whereas for the CBAs, this is the language. So the language is different. It may be the first time you've seen this, or you may have come across it before. But what we'd say is most students will actually, for their age and stage, they'll be in line with expectations. They'll be where they're meant to be. It's a bit like the analogy that we would use is you know, when you bring your child to the health centre for their checkup in their first few months of life, and they might measure their weight or their height or anything, and they'll say, yeah, they're where they're meant to be within the percentile or whatever the language they use is, that we kind of go, oh, thank God, that's great, and they're where they're meant to be. But it's not like, not every student will be getting exceptional or even above expectations, and that is absolutely okay. That's actually to be expected, that if a student is in line with expectations, that we, you know, can be very happy with that. And even the final, you know, descriptor there, it's the positivity of that. It's yet to meet. It's not, you know, unsuccess or anything like that. It's just yet to meet. And I think it's the power of yet there is intended. And I think that's, again, a positive thing. So we try to, with the CBAs, not to create too much, you know, I suppose, fuss around them, that the students would be overly anxious or anything. It's just to develop those skills. And I know myself as a parent, I see my daughter doing project work in primary school. I see her doing presentations as part of that work in primary school. And I think, you know, the students are very well equipped for this when they come in. And sometimes when you give them the chance and let them off, they'll just mesmerize you with what they'll come back with, you know. So you'll hear a lot of talk about classroom-based assessments or CBAs over the next few years, I expect. Exams, just again to let you know about this, because again, the A's and the B's and all that has changed. The language has changed. So when they get their results from the State Exams Commission at the end, the SEC, and that on their junior cycle profile of achievement as well, the JCPA, it's the wording, it's in line with the national qualifications, you know, so it's distinction or higher merit or merit achieved, partially achieved, etc. So that has changed as well, that language. And it takes a while. I tell you, it took me a while to absorb that and get used to which percentages are which as well. So, but over time, we don't need to take everything in this evening. It's just really to give you an idea about the changes at junior cycle. So that's in terms of the final exams. And we're coming towards the end now, just to say to you that at the end of the 3 years, they get a JCPA, Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement. But that's very much the end point, okay? So it's designed in such a way that it's to be broad, okay? So you can see there's a whole wealth of information there. You know, I remember getting my junior certificate results back in 1992, and at the time I took one quick look and it was clear, was it 7 honours, 2 passes, 0 honours, 1 pass? I don't know, it was 10 seconds. The junior cycle profile achievement is not something that you will look at and say honours, anything like that, or higher, or, you know, ordinary level as it's called, you know. The junior cycle profile achievement is much broader. It reports on a wide range of student achievement, which is to be very welcomed. They have, you know, that's a sample JCPA, and it's always being updated. But yes, there will be the SEC, the State Exams Commission, merit, higher merit, whatever they receive there. They'll have those descriptors from the classroom-based assessments, and they may be in line with the expectations for many of them. But they also have other areas of learning, which could be like if they're in a musical or debating or green schools or something like that, that's reported on as well in their junior cycle profile achievement. So you get an idea, a flavour of the wealth, the breadth, the depth of knowledge, and I suppose how wide a reporting template this is. I shouldn't really use template, it's not a template, but a sample. And well-being as well. So how they succeeded in their curricular areas of well-being in terms of CSP, SPHE, and PE, etc. So that's their JCPA that they get at the end of 3rd year. But I suppose these students are only going into 1st year, so you're probably getting their new uniform organised and not thinking about JCPA just yet. But the point I would make is that that's very much the end point, and there is ongoing assessment throughout the 3 years, which is to be very welcomed. I suppose I'd finish up on these 2 slides. This one I just had to put in because I think of these students, I think of the age profile of these, like 12 to 15 years of age. And I think that they're going through adolescence and the challenges. I mean, I see them all those years in Malahide Community School, and the little first years, I say little, they'd be taller than me, but the first years that come in, and even by 2nd year, how they've changed. And I mean, no hobber, no be kind, sixth year, by the time they get to sixth year, they go like they've changed enormously. Adolescence, it's a tough time. It's a demanding time. You know, it's a period of rapid change between 12 and 17. I would say between those years, 12 and 17, the parents probably age about 20 years with all the changes. But I think they have a lot to cope with. They have a lot, and I think, I mean, I have to say, I genuinely believe this. And, you know, in terms of the junior cycle education, I'm absolutely delighted that my children will be going through the new junior cycle. It was a phasing in process, and now all the subjects belong to the new junior cycle, where the key skills have been activated, where well-being is promoted, where there's active learning and inquiry-based learning, where they get to do project work and presentations, etc. So I do think it equips them for the challenges that they're meeting. And I do think that in particular, the well-being and the focus on well-being and on resilience is excellent. And I think it's to be very welcomed as well. And finally, I would just, you know, like finish with that slide to say that what we're trying to develop is really that people talk about lifelong learning a lot. And I know, and I see it on people's bios and all that kind of thing, but really we're looking for that draw, that hunger, that wanting more. And I can see how that can happen with the new junior cycle. I can see how it can be sparked, that it can be ignited, that love of learning. Tell me more, let me, you know, choices is a big part of this, flexibility are, you know, these are the principles that underline junior cycle education as well. And I think all of it lends to a very positive experience for the students in first through to third year. So that's, I mean, I know I'm just looking at the time. It's hard to summarize the entire junior cycle in such a short space of time, in 45 minutes, but I hope you've got a flavour. And I know JCT.ie, as I said, those publications are very useful. And I think they will be very, something you might want to dip into in the future. I hope I've covered a lot of any questions you may have had, and I'll just have a wee look at the chat too. As I said, I know you're busy and matches and everything to go to. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for that comment there about, you know, the webinar. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I can understand where that person is coming from in terms of that change can be daunting for parents, but and definitely for students. I think about that a lot. I think about first years and I reflect upon my own experience as well. So, and you know what, I think, isn't it somewhat harder nowadays? I mean, I think in in 1989, when I was in first year, there was no social media, and it can be very advantageous, but it can also have, you know, there's merits and demerits to all of that. So that they have a lot of pressure on them. So all subjects, CBAs and final exam, good question. Yeah, and yes, it is. All subjects contain CBAs and a final exam. Yes, so thank you for that question. Do the CBAs in second and third year marked on both years, or do they do CBAs in second and third year and marked? So they do some in second year and they do some in third year, and the descriptors will appear for both in the junior cycle profile of achievement. But it's all, as I said, a positive, like even the yet to meet, you know, and it's still the power of yet, but you know, the students mesmerize us every year with the work that they do in the CBAs, you know. Thank you for the other comment. L2LP, let me just have a look at that comment I saw come in very early on. Someone has just asked me just to address that. I'd like to know more about L2LP if the school has no Leading Certified or QQI programs available, school-based, any plans. So what I can say to that question, this person is wondering, will there be a follow-on for L2LPs in senior cycle? That's how I'm reading the question. And the good news to that person, I don't call out your name because it's recorded, but yeah, the good news is that there is a commitment to, you know, there was a senior cycle advisory report issued over the course of the last month. Now it's an advisory report and it's definitely in its senior cycle review. It's not a reform, it's a review, but it's you know, certainly work is going on in the background. But the answer to that is yes, there will be a follow-up program for students following the level 2 learning program at senior cycle. And I'm glad you've asked that question, because it's, I suppose, an area that's close to my own heart, and I was delighted to hear that good news. That's a positive story. So thank you. And any other questions? Thank you so much for all those comments. I really appreciate them. Are the students given a breakdown of results per CBA section and exam results? So no, the students, sorry, thank you for all the other comments. So just to answer that question, in terms of the CBAs, the students, and there's a really good process that happens there as well. The students are guided all along with their CBA, and we identify for them success criteria and how to do well. We give them regular feedback throughout the course. It could be 3 weeks that they're engaged in the CBA. And also we give them as much guidance as we can. When we award a provisional descriptor, say we look at the student, we think it's in line with the expectations, we then attend a SLAR meeting with our colleagues that was referenced in the NCCA video there. And we just get the insight of our colleagues and we make sure that we're on the right track. So it's all very much quality assured. And then we go back to the student and we will let them know what descriptor we got, you know. Now, the student can definitely speak to the teacher then about how they did and what descriptor they got, but a lot of those kind of conversations actually happen in advance and over the course of 3 weeks, because it's a formative process and we're trying to help the students as they go along, you know, and that has worked well. Thank you so much for all these comments, and really appreciate them. And I'm just looking, have I missed anything in the questions? Because I don't leave any stone unturned. Now, our experience of CBAs and the amount of pressure caused by them has been phenomenal. So that's important just to say this comment. And our students comparing ourselves against students gaining 95% plus in maths and reading, that's a standard against which the class we marked and feel the CBAs now could affect leaving cert results. The CBAs won't, you know, affect the leaving cert results. So I think we can reassure the students in that regard. And in terms of, you know, looking for 95% plus in maths, I mean, you know, I suppose it's difficult, isn't it, if the students put themselves under that much pressure all of the time, because it's hard to sustain that. But I think, you know, as time goes on, I know in the early days when CBAs were first introduced, and English was the first subject to be rolled out and to do them and that, and there was a lot of, I suppose, anxiety around them. But I do think the situation has improved, and people, you know, the teachers are more used to the process, and as a result, the students are reassured and calmer. And like an opportunity like for tonight, when we can reassure parents that in line with expectations is absolutely okay, that it doesn't have to be exceptional all the time, because I suppose that's life. We can't be exceptional at everything all the time in life. So I think it's good for the students in that regard too. So I see other comments, just and thank you for all of those positive comments. So hopefully I haven't bored anyone too much tonight or put anyone asleep. But so another question, they actually get an exam result. Just wondering if they may be weaker in CBA or written exam process. They get both. So just to be crystal clear, they get their CBA result, they get that descriptor, it's called, so one of those 4 marks, and then the SEC, the final paper exams, just for that person, they're still sent out to the State Exams Commission, and they're corrected externally, and then they come back and the school is informed of how the students get on. So yes, they get both their written paper exam result and the CBA descriptor. So that's part of what makes the JCPA so comprehensive and broad, etc. And other messages. Oh, my daughter's going into second year. Is this only for the, no, this is applicable. That's a great question for that person. Is this webinar only for those going into first year? No, just, I suppose the remit I got was it's for students going into first year, but everything I said is actually applicable for students in second year too, everything. You know, so that you're a student, that's great. And I mean, isn't it so wonderful that you would give up your time to attend a webinar and be so, you know, so informed about things. So I've, you know, no false flattery, but you know, it's great that people have attended it here tonight and are so informed, and it definitely, information is great, and we can reassure these young people as well. Looking at any other questions there. Will the recording be available? It will. Now, I've a very competent person in the background here, Donal, who's looking after technical end of things, so he'll be able to come in on that in a few moments. Our students going into third year, I have both. Yes, so you've your hands busy. That person, I must say, if you've a student in third year, student in second year, you don't get a minute. But yes, anything that I said tonight, all of this is applicable to all students. Okay, so third years, they will have done. And this year, actually, they would have done 1 CBA instead of 2 over the last 2 years, just because of COVID. But that's an exception. But everything else is the same. They'll do their exams. And we're delighted that these students will finally get a JCPA this year, because there has been no JCPA for 2 years. So it's lucky that your student, it's great that, you know, that he or she is in third year and in second year, because at least we're getting back to some sort of normality. Is the final results CBA and state exam combined? No, the final results CBA is the script for the CBA is the descriptor. They will do an assessment task, which is worth 10% based on how they did on their CBA. And that's in part of the exam, but that's not the actual CBA. It's just an assessment task. Okay, so that's 10%. So really the state exam 90%, assessment task 10, and CBA descriptor only. Webinar will be available. Thanks for that, Donal. And just want to make sure I haven't missed anything else. Yeah, I mean, they're really good questions, aren't they? Really insightful questions. And you can get the sense of care there from the parents and the teachers, or all the people who are attending this webinar this evening. And yeah, I hope it has been of help. All subjects for state exam, yes. Good question again. Yes, all subjects for state certified exam. They can do the choice of 21 subjects for that person, including MFL. It's bundled with 3 subjects there, and technology are 4 subjects. So in total, 21, and yeah, all certified for state exam as well. So that's another positive thing. So. Yeah.
Now I'm just going to jump in here now, Éidín, and I'm going to thank you.
Thank you, May. Thank you, May.
That was so wonderful, and I just really sincerely want to thank you so much for coming along and giving us your time this evening. We really value and respect the engagement that you and your colleagues at the department offer us at NPCPP, and we really appreciate this presentation, and also all of the answers that you have been able to give here this evening. We will, of course, stay in touch with you and with your JCT team so that we can work together to ensure everyone's focus and support for our young people and their parents. I think you've answered a lot of questions coming from a lot of different areas, but I still think that if anyone after this evening has anything else that they wish to get further information on, they can certainly go to jct.ie or email us directly at communications@npcpp.ie. So thank you all so much for giving your time. Please do spread the word to other post-primary parents and encourage all to register and engage with NPCPP. So until we meet again, thank you very much.
It was an absolute privilege. Thank you for the invitation. And it was very easy to work with all the people that supported me in advance. And it was genuinely a privilege to speak to all the parents and other people who are online with us tonight. And I wish all those students the very best, whether they're in first, second or third year. And as I said, they'll mesmerize us when they're given the opportunity. Sometimes now go the other extreme in my own family, I tell you. But generally, when they're given the opportunity, these students come up trumps and do us all proud. So yeah, wish you all a very happy summer. And to any students currently doing exam, I know we've one parent on tonight with a daughter in third year, really thinking of them, and won't they be glad now to get those exams out of the way, and it's a great feeling. But yeah, thank you so much again, May. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Éidín. Thanks. And good night, everybody. Now, good evening.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to stay on, May, for a few moments, or?
I think
that's okay.
I don't know how we cut out of this now.
I'm going to close the presentation now. Thank you, guys.
You can close it now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When it's